High Overseer Ixal stood before the Meridian Council's observation chamber, their crystalline form refracting the starlight as they gestured toward the holographic display of a blue-green planet. The ancient chamber, carved from living crystal deep within the heart of the Andromeda Galaxy, hummed with tension as the emergency session convened. For 10,000 cycles, we have maintained the quarantine. Ixal's voice resonated through the chamber. For 10,000 cycles, we have watched, we have studied, and most importantly, we have stayed hidden. Today that vigilance may have been betrayed. The assembled council members, representatives of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, shifted uneasily in their seats. The hologram zoomed in on a particular region of the planet Earth, highlighting a series of unusual energy signatures that pulsed with an ominous red glow. The Vraxians, hissed Counselor Zara, her serpentine form coiling tighter around her perch. They dare to breach protocol. Indeed, Ixal confirmed, manipulating the display to show a Vraxian scout ship dropping out of hyperspace just beyond Mars. They believe themselves superior to our ancient wisdom. They see Earth as nothing more than another primitive world ripe for conquest. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. The Vraxians were among the youngest of the spacefaring races, having achieved faster-than-light travel barely a millennium ago. Their empire had expanded rapidly, absorbing or subjugating dozens of developing worlds. Their arrogance was matched only by their military might. "Have they not read the archives?" demanded Counselor Keth, his crystalline appendages clicking in agitation. "Have they not seen the footage from the last observer?" Ixal's outer shell dimmed slightly, their species equivalent of a grave nod. With a gesture, they brought up ancient recordings, fragments of data transmitted by the final observation post before its destruction 3,000 cycles ago. The chamber fell silent as they watched the familiar footage. Human warriors, armed with nothing more than chemical-propelled projectiles and primitive explosives, destroying a Drachnid battle cruiser that had crash-landed in their desert. The humans had stripped the alien vessel there within days, reverse engineering technologies that should have been centuries beyond their comprehension. That was when they were still confined to burning hydrocarbons for energy. Ixal reminded the Council. Now they split atoms for power. They have sent primitive probes to the edges of their solar system. They wage wars that would annihilate most species, yet they emerge stronger, more adaptable, more innovative. And the Vraxians believe they can simply take their world. Zara's laugh was without humor. They know nothing of human creativity, of human tenacity, of human spite. New images appeared in the hologram. Humans celebrating victories against impossible odds, rebuilding cities from ashes, turning weapons of war into tools of exploration. A species that should have destroyed itself a dozen times over, yet somehow grew stronger with each crisis. The Vraxians see a level 3 civilization barely capable of reaching their own moon. Ixal continued. They do not see what we have observed for millennia. A species that thrives on challenges, that grows stronger in adversity, that takes the impossible and makes it merely improbable, then inevitable. We must warn them, insisted Keth. The Vraxian Empire's hubris will be their undoing. But the aftermath. The humans will not stop at defending their world. Once they see beyond their cradle. It is too late. Ixal's voice carried a note of finality. The Vraxian fleet has already begun its approach. They plan to offer diplomatic contact as a pretext for establishing a foothold. They believe humans will be awed by their technology, grateful for their guidance. The council chamber erupted in a cascade of concerned voices and urgent discussions. Only Ixal remained silent, watching the hologram as it showed the Vraxian ships moving into position. After 10,000 cycles of observation, everything was about to change. Then we must prepare, Zora declared, rising to her full height. Not to intervene. That time is past, but to contain what is coming. When humanity discovers they are not alone, when they learn they have been watched, when they realize their potential. She left the thought unfinished. Yes, Ixal agreed. their crystalline form pulsing with colors that spoke of both concern and anticipation. We must prepare for humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. The quarantine was never truly about protecting us from them. It was about protecting them from us until they were ready. The hologram shifted one final time, showing the daily lives of billions of humans going about their business, unaware that their world stood on the precipice of irrevocable change. In less than one local solar rotation, the Vraxians would make their grand entrance, believing themselves the harbingers of a new era. They had no idea they were about to become a footnote in humanity's first chapter among the stars. Supreme Commander Vex of the Vraxian Empire stood on the bridge of the Dominion, his primary heart swelling with pride as he watched Earth grow larger in the main view screen. The planet looked deceptively peaceful, swirling with white clouds and vast blue oceans. His secondary heart, evolved for tactical assessment, beat a more cautious rhythm. "Final systems check complete," announced First Officer Krell, her scaled hands dancing across the neural interface. "The human communication networks are saturated with our arrival. Their military forces are scrambling, but maintaining distance as ordered." Vex's lip scales curled in what passed for a Vraxian smile. "Excellent. They show appropriate caution. Begin the broadcast on all frequencies." The message they'd prepared was masterful in its simplicity. The Vraxian Empire came in peace, offering advanced technology and protection in exchange for Earth joining their coalition of worlds. They even included a demonstration of their benevolence, a cure for several human diseases they'd synthesized after studying intercepted medical data. The response was not what they expected. "Sir," Krell's voice carried an unusual note of confusion. "The humans are responding with images, thousands of them. They appear to be from their entertainment archives." "Show me," Vex commanded. The main screen filled with a rapid succession of what the humans called memes. Images of their vessels photoshopped to look like various Earth vegetables. Videos edited to make the Vraxian broadcast dance to human music. One particularly viral image showed their flagship wearing something called a party hat. "They're making fun of us," Krell said, her scales flushing with indignation. Before Vex could respond, a new transmission cut through their frequencies. A human female appeared on screen, wearing what their database identified as a business suit. She smiled, but there was something predatory in her expression that made Vex's combat glands twitch. "Greetings, representatives of the Vraxian Empire. I'm Secretary General Chen of the United Nations. While we appreciate your generous offer, we have some questions about the fine print, particularly the part where you've been collecting our medical data without consent." Vex felt his scales tighten. This wasn't how first contact scenarios usually proceeded, merely preliminary research to better assist your species. "So you admit to surveillance?" Chen interrupted, her smile never wavering. "Interesting. We've also noticed your ships taking up strategic positions around our major population centers. Standard diplomatic procedure, I assume." Krell's tactical display began flashing warnings. Earth's military vessels were moving, not toward them, but into carefully coordinated defensive positions. Ground-based weapons platforms were powering up. And most worryingly, several signatures they couldn't identify were emerging from hidden locations around the planet. "Your species shows remarkable potential," Vex said, falling back on the prepared script. "We merely wish to guide your development, like you guided the development of the Proxima colonies." Chen's smile finally dropped. "Yes, we've been doing our own research. Quantum encryption isn't quite as unbreakable as you thought, especially when human hackers approach it from angles your systems never evolved to defend against." Vex's primary heart stopped completely for a moment. "Impossible. Your technology level is exactly what we wanted you to think it was," Chen finished. "You see, we've known about alien life for quite some time. Those crash sites you thought you'd cleaned up, we found them. Those observation posts you thought were hidden, we tracked them. We just figured it was better to let everyone think we were harmless while we prepared." The tactical display was now screaming alerts. Human vessels were launching what appeared to be primitive missiles, but their trajectories made no sense. They weren't aimed at the Vraxian ships at all. "What are you doing?" Vex demanded. "Creating a proper venue for negotiations," Chen replied. "Those missiles, they're carrying specially designed electromagnetic pulse devices. In about 30 seconds, they'll detonate in a precisely calculated pattern that will create a cascading disruption field in your ship's shield harmonics. Nothing too damaging, just enough to demonstrate that we've had plenty of time to study your technology." "You're bluffing," Krell snarled. "Your species couldn't possibly." The bridge lights flickered as the first wave of pulses hit. Warning signals blared as shield generators began cycling erratically. Vex watched in horror as damage reports flooded in, showing systems failing in exactly the sequence Chen had implied they would. "Now then," Chen continued, as if she were discussing the weather, "shall we talk about a real diplomatic agreement? One between equals. We have some fascinating proposals about cultural exchange, technological cooperation, and mutual defense. We've even prepared a few technological demonstrations of our own. For instance, would you like to see what we did with that Drachnid stealth system we reverse engineered?" As if on cue, dozens of previously undetected human vessels shimmered into visibility around the Vraxian fleet. They weren't particularly advanced by galactic standards, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to be close enough. "Your species," Vex began, his military training mooring with his disbelief. "You were supposed to be primitive, manageable." "Oh, we get that a lot," Chen laughed. "It's amazing how people underestimate a species that learned to split the atom less than a century after inventing powered flight. But here's the thing about humans. We don't like being managed. We don't like being controlled. And we really don't like being lied to." She leaned forward, her expression now deadly serious. "So, Supreme Commander Vex, you have a choice to make. We can either start over, properly this time, as genuine diplomatic equals, or you can try to follow through with whatever invasion plan you thought we wouldn't notice. But I should warn you, we've had decades to prepare for this moment, and we've gotten very creative with your stolen technology." Vex looked at his tactical display, at the reports of systems failing in ways their engineers had never imagined possible, at the human ships holding position with weapons that shouldn't exist yet. He thought about the speed with which they'd adapted to his arrival, the way they'd turned their primitive communication networks into a weapon of mockery, the casual way they'd revealed capabilities that should have taken centuries to develop. For the first time in his distinguished military career, Supreme Commander Vex did something unprecedented. He admitted defeat before a single shot was fired. In the depths of Luna Base Alpha, Dr. Sarah Martinez stood before a holographic display that showed the current diplomatic crisis unfolding across the solar system. The Vraxian fleet hung in high orbit, their ships still recovering from humanity's technological surprise, while representatives from a dozen Earth nations argued with alien diplomats via quantum-entangled communications. But Sarah's attention was fixed on something else entirely, a transmission that shouldn't exist. "Play it again," she ordered, and the quantum eye complied. The message was brief, encoded in a way that suggested intimate knowledge of Earth's most advanced encryption protocols. It came from a faction within the Meridian Council, the same ancient alliance that had quarantined Earth for millennia. "Your demonstration against the Vraxians was impressive," the crystalline being called Zora had said in the recording. "But you've attracted the attention of forces far more dangerous than a young empire's ambitions. We wish to meet." The coordinates they'd provided were for an asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, far enough from Earth to be secure, close enough to reach with humanity's current propulsion technology. The verification codes they'd included proved they had access to classified human databases. They knew about the reverse-engineered ships humanity had built in secret. They knew about the quantum computing breakthroughs. They knew everything. "General Watson needs to see this," Sarah muttered, but before she could send the message, her quantum terminal chimed with an incoming transmission. "Already here, Doctor." General Alice Watson's hologram materialized in the room, her dark skin contrasting with the stark white of her uniform. And I'm not alone. The room's security fields rippled as another figure phased into existence, a being that seemed to be made of living crystal and light. Sarah's hand instinctively went to the phased pistol at her hip. "Peace, Dr. Martinez," the crystalline entity said, its form refracting light in complex patterns that somehow conveyed both authority and urgency. "I am Counselor Keth. The situation is more dire than you know. You're breaking about 15 different quarantine protocols just by being here," Sarah noted, though she didn't draw her weapon. "Why?" "Because the quarantine was never about containing humanity." Keth's crystal structure pulsed with colors that their translation software interpreted as emphasis. "It was about protecting you until you were ready. And now, thanks to the Vraxians' foolishness, events are accelerating faster than anyone predicted." General Watson's hologram crossed her arms. "Ready for what exactly?" "To help us save the galaxy," Keth replied. "You see, humanity isn't just another emerging species. You're something we've been waiting for, a species that can do what we cannot." The quantum AI projected new data streams, ancient star charts, energy readings, and what appeared to be mathematical proofs so complex they made Sarah's head hurt. But among the data, patterns emerged. "The galaxy is dying," Sarah whispered, recognizing the implications. "These energy signatures, something's consuming stellar matter at a quantum level." "The Void Cascade," Keth confirmed. "A weapon deployed in a war so ancient that even my people only know it through legend. It has been spreading, slowly but inexorably, for millions of your years. Our most advanced technologies cannot stop it. Our most brilliant minds cannot solve it. We have tried and failed. And you think we can?" General Watson's tone was skeptical. "We know you can." Keth's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been amusement. "Your species does something none of ours can. You think wrongly." Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "You approach problems from impossible angles," Keth explained. "You ignore established laws of physics because you don't know they're supposed to be unbreakable. You combine technologies in ways that should not work, yet somehow do. The way you defeated the Vraxians, using their own shield harmonics against them. It should have been impossible. But you didn't know that, so you did it anyway. And now the Vraxians know about us," General Watson said grimly. "They'll be back with a bigger fleet." "No," Keth's form pulsed with something like satisfaction. "They won't. Because right now, the Vraxian Empire is dealing with a rather interesting data leak. Every world they've conquered or subjugated has somehow received complete technical specifications for the weaknesses you discovered in their ship systems." Sarah couldn't help but smile. "Let me guess, along with detailed instructions for exploiting those weaknesses. Indeed, the Vraxians will be preoccupied for quite some time, which gives us an opportunity. There are those within the Council who believe as I do, that humanity's unique perspective might be the key to solving the Void Cascade. We wish to share our technology, our knowledge, to work together openly." "And the rest of the Council," Watson asked, "would rather maintain the quarantine. They fear what humanity might become with access to advanced technology. They are not wrong to be afraid. Your species can be terrifying. But we're out of options. The cascade accelerates. We need humanity's impossible solutions." Sarah looked at the data again, her mind already racing with possibilities. The quantum mechanics involved were fascinating. If they combined their AI's processing power with crystalline computing, and maybe applied that weird quantum tunneling effect they discovered while trying to make better coffee makers. "We'll need to brief the Security Council," Watson said. "Set up proper diplomatic channels." "With all due respect, General," Sarah interrupted, her eyes still fixed on the equations, "I think I know how we can prove our worth to the Council right now." She turned to Keth. "Your people use crystalline quantum computing, right? But you've never combined it with organic neural networks, because the interface requirements are supposedly impossible." Keth's form shifted in what might have been surprise. Correct. The energy requirements alone would be impossible. Sarah grinned. If you followed the normal laws of physics. But what if we did it wrong? I have some ideas that are just crazy enough to work. As Sarah began explaining her theory, a theory that violated at least 3 fundamental laws of physics, but just might save the galaxy, Keth's crystalline form began resonating with colors that the translation software couldn't quite interpret. If pressed, Sarah would have called it hope. The Meridian Council's emergency chamber was in chaos. Holographic displays showed the void cascades accelerating advance through the Carina arm of the galaxy, while crystalline beings argued in frequencies that made human teeth vibrate. But in the center of it all, Dr. Sarah Martinez stood calmly before a jury-rigged device that should not exist. You want to do what? High Overseer Ixel's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. We want to plug your quantum crystalline matrices into a modified human neural network, Sarah repeated, patting the device that her team had cobbled together from spare parts and impossible dreams. Then we're going to use it to punch a hole in reality. The council chamber erupted in a cascade of electromagnetic frequencies that the human translation software interpreted as everything from horror to hysterical laughter. Only Counselor Keth and his faction remained silent, having already witnessed enough human solutions to know better than to dismiss them. The energy requirements alone, one council member began, are handled. Sarah interrupted, pulling up a holographic diagram. See, we noticed something while studying your crystalline computing systems. You're all using quantum entanglement in the most efficient way possible, which is exactly the problem. You need to do it wrong. She gestured to her device. This is the wrong engine. It deliberately misaligns quantum states in ways that should tear apart the fabric of spacetime. But instead of causing catastrophic failure, it creates a kind of quantum pressure differential. We can use that to push back against the cascade's consumption effect. Impossible, another council member declared. The mathematical proofs are correct, Sarah agreed, if you follow all the rules. But the void cascade doesn't follow the rules, does it? It breaks fundamental laws of physics, so we need to break them right back. At her signal, a holographic display showed test results from Earth's secret research facilities. The wrong engine, despite violating at least 7 fundamental laws of physics, was working. Small-scale tests had successfully reversed the cascade's effects in controlled environments. But scaling it up to affect an entire arm of the galaxy, Ixel's tone carried clear skepticism. The power requirements would be astronomical. Funny you should mention astronomy, Sarah grinned. She nodded to General Watson, who activated another holographic display. It showed thousands of small devices, each bearing the distinct crystalline organic hybrid architecture of human innovation. We call them wrong satellites, Watson explained. Mass-produced using a combination of your crystalline technology and our quantum AI manufacturing. Each one is designed to create a small bubble of wrongness in spacetime. Individually, they're insignificant, but networked together. You want to create a galaxy-wide network of devices that deliberately violate the laws of physics. The horror in Ixel's voice was palpable. Actually, Sarah corrected, we already have. Those aren't designs. They're deployment footage. We launched the first wave 6 hours ago. The council chamber erupted again, but before anyone could object, new alerts flashed across the holographic displays. The void cascade's advance had hit the first line of wrong satellites. Everyone watched, transfixed, as the impossible happened. The cascade stopped. Not only stopped, it began to recede, pushed back by zones of deliberately induced wrongness that turned its own reality-breaking properties against it. The wrong satellites, networking together in ways that defied conventional physics, were creating a growing bubble of structured impossibility that the cascade couldn't consume. This is madness, one council member whispered. This is humanity, Keth responded, his crystalline form resonating with what might have been pride. They don't just think outside the box. They take the box apart, reassemble it wrong, and somehow make it work better. Sarah was already pulling up new diagrams. The current network is just the prototype. We've got plans for version 2.0 that's even more wrong. We're thinking of adding some quantum tunneling effects we discovered while trying to make better coffee machines. And there's this weird thing that happened when we were experimenting with faster-than-light cat videos. Stop, Ixel commanded, but there was a new tone in their voice. You deliberately induced quantum tunneling to improve beverage preparation. Oh, that was just a side project. Sarah waved dismissively. You should see what we did with pizza delivery drones. But the point is, the wrong network is working. We can push back the cascade. We can save the galaxy. We just need to be willing to do it completely incorrectly. The holographic displays continued to show the cascade retreating, its reality-consuming advance thwarted by humanity's engineered wrongness. Across the galaxy, wrong satellites were coming online, creating an expanding web of impossibility that was somehow, against all logic, exactly what they needed. There will be consequences, Ixel warned. Creating such widespread violations of physical law will have effects we can't predict. Sarah agreed. But we're pretty good at dealing with unexpected consequences. It's kind of our specialty. And hey, if something goes really wrong, we've got some ideas involving quantum-entangled rubber bands and what we're calling the right engine, which works by being aggressively normal in a way that might reset local physics. Please, Ixel interrupted, their crystalline form dimming in what might have been resignation. Stop explaining. I suspect understanding your methods would only make them stop working. Probably, Sarah admitted cheerfully. It's why we had to write our technical documentation in interpretive dance. But the important thing is, it's working. We can save the galaxy. We just have to be willing to do it wrong. Around them, the wrong network continued to expand, pushing back the void cascade with the power of humanity's structured impossibility. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't logical, and it definitely wasn't how anyone else would have solved the problem. But it worked. And in the end, that was the most human thing about it. 1 year after the deployment of the wrong network, the Meridian Council chamber looked very different. Human engineers had improved the ancient crystalline architecture with modifications that somehow made the impossible room even more impossible. Quantum organic hybrid interfaces pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist, while holographic displays showed the successful containment of the void cascade across 3 galactic arms. High Overseer Ixel stood at the center of it all, their crystalline form shifting through patterns that the human translation software now recognized as deep amusement. We should have known. They addressed the assembled council and human representatives. All those millennia of quarantine, believing we were protecting the galaxy from humanity, when in fact, we were preserving exactly what the galaxy needed. Dr. Sarah Martinez, recently appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Meridian Council, grinned from her hover seat, which operated on principles that made most alien physicists cry. To be fair, you weren't entirely wrong about humanity being dangerous. We did just break physics across roughly 40% of known space. But you fixed it, Counselor Kef pointed out. Mostly, the quantum hiccups in the Sagittarius arm are actually proving quite useful for energy production. And the temporal inversions near the galactic core, another council member asked dryly, are now running on a predictable schedule. Sarah assured them. We've even set up a tourism industry around them. Turns out a lot of species enjoy experiencing Tuesday before Monday, as long as they know it's coming. The holographic displays updated, showing the latest data from the wrong network. The void cascade wasn't just contained, it was being systematically dismantled, its reality-consuming effects reversed by humanity's engineered impossibilities. But that wasn't why they had gathered today. The true revelation, Ixel continued, came when our archaeologists finally decoded the rest of the ancient records, the ones that explain the origin of the void cascade itself. The chamber hushed. Even the humans, usually irrepressible, fell silent. The ancients didn't deploy the cascade as a weapon. Ixal's form pulsed with colors of revelation. It was an experiment. They were trying to solve the same problem we faced: the eventual heat death of the universe. They sought to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics, to create a new framework that would prevent entropy from claiming everything. But it went wrong. Sarah finished. Instead of rewriting physics, it started unwriting reality itself. Yes, Ixal confirmed. The ancients couldn't control it because they were too logical, too bound by the rules they were trying to change. They needed someone who could approach the problem differently, who could see solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. They needed humans. Keth's crystalline form sparkled. A species that would look at fundamental laws of physics and say, that's more like a suggestion, really. The holographic displays shifted again, showing new data that the wrong network had uncovered. Hidden within the void cascade's quantum structure were patterns, not of destruction, but of transformation. The ancients hadn't failed entirely. They'd simply been unable to complete their work. The wrong network isn't just containing the cascade, Sarah explained, pulling up her latest research. It's completing the original experiment. When we break physics in exactly the wrong way, we're not just stopping the unraveling of space-time. We're reweaving it into something new, something sustainable. You're saying, one council member began slowly, that humanity's complete disregard for how things are supposed to work is actually fulfilling the ancients' grand design. Ironic, isn't it? Sarah laughed. All those years you spent watching us, worried about what we might do to the galaxy. And it turns out what the galaxy needed was exactly that. Someone willing to do the impossible, incorrect thing. New alerts flashed across the displays. Another section of the void cascade had been not just contained, but transformed. The wrong network was spreading, creating zones of stabilized impossibility that somehow made the universe more stable, not less. We're calling it the right-wrong synthesis, Sarah continued. A new framework of physics that combines conventional laws with structured impossibility. It's not elegant, it's not what the ancients planned, but it works. The universe won't end in heat death because we've taught it how to be just wrong enough to keep going. And this is why Ixal addressed the full council. We are here today to formally propose something unprecedented, making humanity full members of the Meridian Council, with all the rights and responsibilities thereof. The chamber erupted in discussion, but not in opposition. They had all seen enough over the past year to understand humanity's chaotic creativity, their willingness to try the impossible, their ability to make the wrong things work. These weren't flaws to be contained. They were essential traits that the galaxy desperately needed. There will need to be guidelines, of course, Ixal continued. Protocols for implementing human innovations. Oh, about that, Sarah interrupted, her grin turning slightly sheepish. We may have already started sharing some of our wrong tech with other species. The Vraxians are particularly interested in our quantum coffee makers, and several younger civilizations have started experimenting with our faster-than-light CAD video transmission systems. Ixal's form flickered in what might have been exasperated acceptance. Of course you have, because that's what humans do, isn't it? You don't just solve problems. You share solutions, spread ideas, teach others to think differently. That's kind of our thing, Sarah agreed. Breaking physics is fun, but helping others learn to break it too. That's what really makes it worthwhile. As the council chamber filled with plans for the future, for spreading the right-wrong synthesis, for teaching other species to think impossibly, for preparing the galaxy for a new age of structured impossibility, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity had done more than save the galaxy. They had taught it to be gloriously, productively wrong. And that, perhaps, was the most right thing of all.